So Felix, thank you very much for joining me today. I'm sure everybody's interested in hearing your insights on the topics that we're discussing. The first question I've got for you today is, what was your path into leadership, and what advice do you have for people that are considering taking the same route?
Yeah, first, thanks for having me. Very happy to do this Q&A. I think my path into leadership wasn't like a straight one. It came rather later in my career, if you want to say it like that. So the first 10 years of my career, or 8 to 10 years, was really working as a developer, in the beginning more in research, and then really slowly getting more, real developing products and systems. And it was really that at one point where I wasn't planning to move up or to take more responsibility, that my team leader left, very surprisingly, and then I was asked if I want to take this role. And it wasn't that I said, okay, great, I'm going to take it. It was really said, let me think about this. And I think it was really like 3 months that I was thinking about, and they kind of got impatient and were looking for alternatives at that point, that I actually decided to take the role. And let me explain you why, because I think I was really happy being a developer. I really loved what I was doing. I was really working on more complex systems, developing modems for laser communication and in satellites. And this was very challenging work, very interesting work. I could really see this things. Yeah, I was really doing hands-on stuff, and I knew taking more responsibilities. Well, it was a small team, was 5 people, so it did not become a full-time job. But I knew that a lot of things are going to change, and I was really, thinking about if I want to do this. But once I took the decision, um, I I do not regret it now, of course, obviously, because a lot of things happened afterwards. But once I took the decision, I was also not looking back. I was not thinking, okay, well, I wish I would not have taken the decision that way. So it was a conscious decision, not an easy one, but it also was clear for me. Now I'm gonna take more responsibility for people. I'm gonna take more responsibility for multiplying my skills and helping other people's to thrive, not just caring about my own stuff I was doing. And it's been since then kind of an adventure. Basically, things happened that I got lucky to have people around me, or let's say when we look at hierarchies, above me, that were wanted to promote me, that wanted to work with me, and that wanted to give me more responsibilities. So I really had the opportunity to take responsibility for several teams just, I think, a year later, and then even start helping to build a whole department just another year later. And that's how I grew into managing 5 or 6 teams of more than 50 people only 2 years after I've decided to take the decision to move into that role. So it was really going fast from there, which is most typically if you are in a kind of scaling up startup. Of course, there is opportunities to take more responsibility all the time. And then going from there, I moved to other opportunities just because I wanted to do something new, managing departments ever since, always consisting of teams. Large department at Satellogic, and then going and joining Reflex recently, no, it's almost 2 years ago by now, but really with the option to build a department and help building a company in the way I wanted it, and with the things I've seen and the things I've learned over the last 15, 16 years of my career. And that's kind of been my path. Now to the second part of your question, what advice can I give people? It's kind of hard because I think my way is not been the typical way where I was looking for a leadership position and then pursued that. But if I look back now, what made it possible for me was that I really looked into a lot of things technology-wise. Well, I did not look into mechanical engineering or things like that, but I really did not just focus on doing one thing, but I learned a lot about hardware development, a lot about software development, and I always kind of like really the first 10 years of my career, I like to broaden my technical skills and knowledge and always like really want to move outside of what I was doing. And that helped me then later to really interact with other engineers and understand their problems, not only in my original discipline, but also outside of that. And always, still today, I'm kind of also reading technical things and want to understand technical things that are far outside. But I think getting good in something, not too narrow, but also not too broad. Having good technical knowledge, being able to interact with people, I think is a very good foundation for any leadership position in a technical field. And then the second advice, which I think is very important, or was important for me, that it's really a conscious decision. That somebody does not move into a leadership position because that's the natural career path, and does not move into a leadership position because they feel that that's what they have to do or what is expected from them. I think you need to understand that this is a different job. You're not an individual contributor, and your technical skill might be secondary, and at least 50%. And the larger your team, it's being more. It's that the job is really making sure other people can thrive. And it's also dealing with other people's problems and dealing with other people's issues and demands. And that's also trying to meet the demands of your manager as well as the people you're managing. And it's a difficult job. And it's a very different job than writing code or developing hardware. And I think that needs to be a conscious decision.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a really important point, because I speak to a lot of people that have gone into leadership, and I think they always say the same thing, that mindset shift of moving from an individual contributor where, everything's all about your individual abilities, to then having to think about how you can instead bring a team together and, promote other people and their skills and abilities, and avoid becoming a one-man show still is something that not a lot of people think about, it seems. So, the fact that you took so long to think about it, I think obviously, as you say, probably put you in a really great position to get straight into it with that mindset already shifted.
Yeah, definitely. And I think way too often it happens that just your best engineer in the team gets promoted, right? And this is like or the most experienced, and that might not always be the best person for that job.
Yeah, definitely. Well, to be fair, that leads us really well into question 2, which is what advice do you have for companies for them to develop and promote people into leadership positions?
Well, yeah, okay. I kind of started already with the answer. I think it's very important that that this is also a conscious decision by the company, and that they understand that the best engineer is not always the best manager, and the most experienced engineer is not always the best manager. But the responsibility is really with the company to also create that environment where where not everybody is kind of just aiming to become a manager, but where the company creates an environment where the individual contributor is valued as much or even more than somebody managing people. And in the end, it is how I see it. It's just, this should be, yes, people think in hierarchies, but I mean, the understanding of the people or the culture that I would love to establish, this is hard, and this is not happening, but what I would love to establish is really that people just see manager as another job with another task, while the individual contributor's job might be to design PCBs, and the manager's job might be to create the perfect environment that this person can design the best hardware they can, or that people really, it's their job to really help people to reach their full potential. And yeah, I think for that it's really that companies have a lot of responsibility. Yeah, it's not just the people that you have that might be suited or might not be suited for a good leadership role. It's really, first we need to create an environment where the manager is as much valued as the individual contributor and the other way around. And when I say valued, does not only mean how you treat them, but maybe also how you pay them. Yeah, I think yes, of course, carrying responsibility for people is something special, and it's potentially compensate a little bit more, but it should not be the only way to climb up the career ladder or the salary ladder, if you want to call it like that. There should really be, the company needs to find a clear path that you can be successful and have a great career as an individual contributor as much as you as a manager, and that this is not your only way to to move up the in ranks. I think that's very important.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think, if it was made a situation whereby the only track you could take was to go into leadership, there'd be nobody left as an individual contributor eventually, would there? You need enough people to be doing the work, and enough managers to obviously manage them. But yeah, I think it's not done enough whereby, somebody can see their path clearly defined if they remain as an individual contributor. So, there's been instances even in businesses where I've worked where there's been, you can take this route into management, or you can take this route as an individual contributor, and there's an equal, visibility of the path that you can take. And it means, you've got a conscious decision to make there as to which one you can take, and you don't feel like you're missing out if you choose one or the other. I think that's really important, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And I also think it's first, if everybody wants to be promoted for this, you don't need so many managers, right? Actually, I mean, the best teams, you might not need none because people just get organized without them. Yeah, but I think first it creates an unnecessary rivalry amongst people if a new management role is to be filled. Yeah, or potentially, not always, but potentially. And on top of it, if always the best or the most experienced people are going to be the ones that are promoted, you also lose some great individual contributors. Yeah, so that might be much better suited in just doing the technical work they do. So I think, this can only be win-win if, and I think the company has the responsibility to create the right environment. Yeah, cannot expect this just people to be reasonable and think, no, I'm just not, I won't be a good manager. There's people that understand that from the beginning, but I think it's not the mindset that everybody comes with, which is more problem, I don't know, coming from society or from the company cultures that have been established.
Yeah, definitely. Finally, then, the last question I've got for you is, as a manager, what's your position on remote working?
Yeah, I mean, remote work has become more of a topic over the last 4 years than it was the first 11 or 12 years of my career. And my thoughts have also evolved and changed over this time. I mean, I think basically pre-COVID, I was a young manager already. Was kind of my first year or first 2 years being a manager. And back then I had the opportunity to do home office, but I rarely used it. I liked that separation between home and office for myself. Yeah, this is just speaking for myself. I really liked leaving the office, going home, and trying to get at least rid of some of the problems that were following me. So I never used it. Very rarely when it was just from an organizational standpoint, because I had a long commute. Sometimes it makes sense, but usually I never used it. And then, of course, I was forced into doing it all the time. Although really, when COVID started, I was one of the last people that was still coming to the office. I think we were kind of closing the door in the end when everybody had to be remote or something like that. and I was one of the first people to come back. But and it was not a great experience for me. I really had struggling with that to not. I tended to work more. I was really like I could like because basically I started in the morning without taking too much care of what I did before. Like if you leave the house, kind of you probably preparing yourself more than just switching on your computer. Although I made it a ritual that I would dress the same way as I would have dressed as going to the office.
Yeah.
So that's something I still do today when I work at home. So it was really hard for me to separate the private life and work when I had to work fully remotely. And it really there was a situation where I thought where there actually was 4 days of public holidays coming. I think it was over Easter and so on. I thought, oh, I'm gonna work Friday, Saturday, and then Sunday, Monday, I'm gonna take off. And then actually I caught myself with this thought, but no, this is completely ridiculous. Yeah? You gotta take Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday off because those are your holidays. And from that day on, I was actually much more intentional on how I started work, when I finished work, and that made it easier and better. So that's my personal story on that. Looking on how my standpoint on working with remote teams, I've been in a company. So before joining Reflex, in a company that has been kind of partially or fully remote. Of course, you cannot assemble satellites if you are fully remote. You have to be, at least in the factory, if you have to be hands-on with hardware. But essentially, the team was kind of distributed over the whole world and working from very remote places at somewhere in Patagonia, for example, in Argentina, and other people were in Europe. And it worked very well, I must say. I could not have imagined that, but they had just established a culture and habits that made this work very well, and I could not see that they are less productive than others. Actually, I thought they've been a very productive company in that sense. So I don't have any negative experiences when it comes to that. I think there's something lost, though. I think like when you look at being in the office compared to just working remote, there's something lost, and the reason is because you only meet intentional now. Yeah, you do not have random encounters. But I would say, thinking about my work as a developer, as a manager, but especially as a developer, actually, a lot of very fruitful and great ideas came from random discussions at the coffee machine or just somewhere. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I think this random encounters that really led to great improvements on some of the products I've been working on and gave me great ideas. These are completely lost. And I think this leads to loss in productivity and in creativity, especially. So that's something I think is really missing if you work fully remote, because you don't meet intentionally and then exchange random thoughts, right? And like, of course, you could facilitate that, but I don't think that it's going to work in the same way. I think it's really this kind of mind wandering thing and just randomly talking to people that often breeds great ideas. And on the other side, I'm a person that's very easily distracted. So for me, moving from an open office space where everybody's sitting together into my own office at home, I'm obviously in my office right now, as you can see at home, made me personally much more productive when it comes down to a pure question of productivity. Yeah? So I really believe that the hybrid version of being able to have an isolated space where you can totally focus on your task, but also have the option and being forced to have random meetings with other people, is the perfect world, actually, I think.
Yeah.
So I really like the hybrid model, as it makes me, and I think other people that have to do very focused work, makes them more productive as well. But I also think creativity often is better in an office surrounding. Yeah, so that's so you see, I have a clear position. It's a hybrid model. I believe fully remote can work. I believe fully office can work, but there's advantages and disadvantages to both. And I really think the hybrid model is the best. Those companies that force the people back to the office with the for me, the only argument is really what I said. This creativity point. If we if we think that people are not working when they're at home, then we have a problem. Because I've seen people not working sitting in the office there for a long time. So I think time spent at the office is not equal to any measure of productivity. I just don't believe it. That might be true for some kind of jobs, but I think the work that we are doing, this does not correlate at all. And I personally, if you don't trust your people that they properly work at home, first you have an issue with trust, but secondly, you really have not understood that these people will not work in the office either. It's just like that, I think. I've just for that I've been along in this kind of work for long enough to having seen people that work great from the office or from home, and people that do not work at all in the office or at home. So I think it's not a question of that. You just need to have the right people.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, and I'm the same. To be fair, I think the hybrid model works really well for me because I think, like you mentioned earlier, that routine of getting up, getting ready in the morning, commuting to work, it separates your work life and your personal life on those days. I too, sometimes when I'm working from home, I fall into that sort of mindset of I can just throw in an extra couple of meetings in the morning, an extra couple of meetings in the evening, and then my 9 hour day goes to a 12, 14 hour day. And sometimes it is difficult to separate the personal and the work life when you're working from home. But I think to have a balance between the two. I commute over an hour to get to work in the mornings. To not have to do that commute certain days a week, it's definitely good for my mental health, and it means that I can be more productive on that day and what have you. So I completely agree. I think the hybrid model is the best, and I like your point as well about the fact that if somebody's not working at home, there's no guarantee they're going to work in the office either. I think it's more a mindset thing there.
Definitely, yeah. Especially for the kind of work we do. As I said, there might be jobs where it's different, but if you are a knowledge worker that really has to focus and put in creativity, and I think that it's really, if the motivation is not there, it doesn't matter where you're at. No.
Yeah, no, definitely not. Brilliant. Oh, Felix, well, thank you very much for your time on that. I really appreciate your insights there, and I'm sure everybody else will as well.
Thanks a lot.